Hi guys, this is a direct video response to a video I have seen from YouTube user the name John Four Lakers. The as far as I believe, the proprietor of tech blogging site Techno Buffalo. Just to bring it up, this is the video that I'm talking about. It was called Switching to Mac, the Pros and Cons. I'm responding. I'm over 2 years late. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me try and zoom you in. There, look. The date there is March the 6th, 2008. So I'm over 2 years late. It is now September the 7th, 2010. But I am a bit late joining the Mac train, and I'll try and explain that as well in this video. Thank God to the new 15-minute limit, because it's going to be hard. I mean, I'm known to go off on a tangent anyway, and those of you who are watching this are frequent to my videos, which is probably not many of you, but you'll know that I can tend to sometimes waffle or go off on a tangent, and I have a lot to cover with this anyway, or at least I feel I do, and a lot to explain. Anyway, I did decide to do this in screencast mode with included webcam, because some of it will be me talking to you guys direct, which is why I include the webcam, but I also include webcam overlay in all my screencasts anyway. But the reason why I did it in screencast mode rather than a direct webcam record into photo booth or whatever is so any features or anything I might talk about, I can actually show you. So I can show you what I'm talking about, and plus I can direct it at, in particular, Windows users. Now, this video I'm posting as a response. I'm hoping that John, I'm hoping that you actually view this video yourself, because it's also as a direct response to you and to your question, and as a kind of like message to you, to say, I'm late on the train. I agree exactly with what you said, because one of the points you made in your video is you once you had made the switch to Mac, you love your Mac, you love OS X, you love the simplicity of it, you love the way things work, whatever. You've never looked back since. That's pretty much the same for me. Now, I'll go on to try and demonstrate a few things of why I love Mac and why I chose Mac. Now, first, a bit of backstory. Some people following my screencasts, since before even this Mac, on my old channel and this, the first videos on this channel, might be familiar with the parts of this story. Right, I started off, I'm living alone now in a bit of a dump. I don't keep it very tidy as well, that's my own fault. As I say, I've lived here since 2008, about March the 10th of 2008, approximately, well, March 2008 or whatever. So, I've lived here about over 2.5 years or whatever now. Obviously, when I first moved down and stuff, was broke, unemployed and such, it's a shitty council flat, not in the best areas. At first, obviously, I didn't have a PC of my own or whatever. As I say, I had my consoles that I was able to take with me, and they were my only entertainment. First PC I got of mine that was my own, personally, that I bought myself and everything, was it was an old Dell Optiplex system, which is actually down here under the desk. It was an old Dell Optiplex, GTX 270 or something like that. I'm not sure, but in time I upgraded the RAM in there, because it started with 512 megabyte. I upgraded it to a gig. I also installed a DVD burner in there, because it started with a combi drive, a DVD writer, and CD burner. Yeah, I'm running XP natively, okay, but I started experimenting with Linux distributions, whatnot, because I'd get better performance out of them. Now, later on, right near the end of that year, I had a big compensation payout. Long story, I'm not going to go into that. I'm definitely not going to have time for that in this video. With that, as I say, because it was in the thousands, with that, and I have to say, I regret the choice now, and like, I'll be explaining once I've gone through all these things, you know, be able to understand why. Now, looking back, I'm wishing I'd used that money to buy a Mac Pro. Although, saying that, that would be a bit behind the times hardware-wise now, but it would have been a lot easier to upgrade. Well, anyway, we'll get to that, hopefully, if I'm, you know, within time. So yeah, I had a big compensation payout. It was in the tens of thousands, only the low tens of thousands, like just over 10 grand or whatever. But pounds, that is, UK pounds. But I used some of it, like, to buy myself a new PC, brand new. I mean, this one was, the Dell was bought from Cash Converters. It was a second-hand, or at least second-hand, probably third-hand or whatever, you know. This brand new, you know, from a local small, you know, PC retail store, built exactly to spec, you know, to be able, with the latest, I wanted it with the latest and greatest hardware. Bear in mind, this was in 2008. You know, the best of the best. I wanted it to be able to do everything. I wanted it to be like that, snappy as hell. Basically, I had it spec'd up with Intel Core 2 Quad CPU at 2.80 gigahertz and 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, an NVIDIA GTX 260 graphics card, and at the heart of it all, Asus Striker 2 Extreme motherboard. It also has, I'm saying has because I still have this system, it also has a 140 gigabyte 10,000 RPM Raptor drive, Western Digital Raptor, which I used for booting, you know, booting Windows or whatever, booting, OS booting, and all installations were made to that to try and speed things up. And I also had with it a 1 terabyte hard drive, which I use for all file storage. We'll get to that, but it's now being used, as I say, as a backup drive on my new iMac. Anyway, as I say, I was pretty happy with the PC, at least with the performance of it. The fact that I could run pretty much, especially at the time, any game. You know, I could run fucking Crysis on a piece of piss. Could run any game. You know, maxed out settings or whatever. You know, everything would be snappy, fast as hell. One issue I had, which I'm putting down to the motherboard, but it would freeze up. It would lock up on me. Just at certain occasions, it would just lock. It would just lock. And when I say lock up, I mean, I'm getting a screensaver. When I say lock up, I mean, say this right. If I put the cursor still now, you see how everything's stationary. Nothing's doing anything. Just a still screen. It could be a picture, you know, rather than a computer desktop or whatever. That's what I'd get. If I moved this mouse, this cursor wouldn't move. If I click the button, it wouldn't have done anything like that. It would do nothing. No keystrokes would do anything. The only way I could rectify this total lockup, system lockup, was a hard reset. Now, the only system locked in Windows was that basically that the system had, you know, been shut down without, you know, turned off, powered down, whatever, without, you know, Windows had not been shut down properly. So obviously, Windows didn't detect the problem, so the problem was definitely hardware related, because, you know, basically Windows 4 was still running perfectly well. Anyway, this problem started in 2008, the same year that I basically purchased the system. So I'd not even had it for a year. I'd probably barely had it for a couple of months, and I started having these lockups. Now, I contacted my store and whatever. You know, eventually they had it in, they had it back, and you know, eventually they sent it off to manufacturers. Well, actually, they sent it off to their supplier. Whether it ever actually reached ASUS or whether it ever actually reached the manufacturer, God only knows. But yeah, that basically, then 2008, you know, whatever, you know, the year I bought the BZ, I started having these lockup issues. 2010, now, this year, up until not even 2 weeks ago, you know, nearly 2 weeks ago, you know, up until then, I've still been having the system freezes. You know, I had it sent off and whatever. Pardon my French, but feck all was fixed. They sent me back exactly the same motherboard, you know, and I'd spent, you know, over 2 years or whatever trying to get the bugger sorted. In the end, I gave up and I just tried to make do with the system as is. I mean, I had a power supply go on me as well. I'm thinking that was from the constant hard resets and whatever, from every time the system locked up. I think, you know, the power supply just gave in and just went poof. Anyway, all this trouble, near impossible to get anything done about it support-wise. Also, trying to troubleshoot the system, the fact that, you know, one thing's made by one company, one thing was made by another, blah, 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 Windows, totally different company, you know. All this, so hard it was to try and get it sorted, and it never actually did get sorted in the end. I mean, by now, the bloody half the warranties are probably up anyway. I mean, I'm not sure about the motherboard, because I think that might be 3-year warranty, but if it's 2-year, I'm screwed. Basically, I'm pretty much screwed, because it's September now, and it was around September that I got the board. So yeah, I seriously hope I'm not taking too long here, but basically, that was my backstory, and by that time, I was just fucked off with it. I was so peeved with it. I just had it enough, and I just had enough with PCs and all the fumbling about with them and stuff. All I wanted, as I say, I mean, by that time as well, I was using, I'd gone back for a while just using my old Dell.